Will people come back is the question. If I was in the EU and I'd left, would I come back? Probably not. So I'm not certain this will be a panacea or a big help to us, but it's a positive move, which it should be welcomed because we'd lobbied hard for it. And I think, the government did or has listened. Probably because they're worried about the NHS collapsing rather than the future of social care. But that's, we've recorded now, I can't say that. Okay, so what would I do about a workforce strategy then? Then I think, there are several things to do, and I can go into more detail another time, but if you have to really kind of remove anything that's outside of your control and focus on things that you can do. The first point to make, which you may have heard me make before, is that don't worry about not having too many applicants. The question is, where did they come from? And you can manage with 1/10 of the applicants you used to manage with if you're choosing your sources well. And I think it's a very important point. We should not measure success or panic on the basis of the number of applications we get. It's all a question of who converts. And to illustrate that point, one hire, you need about 50 internet job board applicants to make one hire. And you need 180 outreach sort of emails to a CV database to get one hire. 180 of them, 50 internet job board applicants, and 5 or 6 employee referrals, somewhere in that range. And Facebook's in between those two, depending on how you advertise, what your job ad is and whether you actually respond to people. So we have a range here, and we need to be accessing all of these really, and putting them all in the pot and diversifying our sources. And so what I would be doing, aside from probably continuing with Total Jobs and Indeed and so on, but maybe reviewing the way I wrote my advert and perhaps putting that advert into other sections. So I would be advertising in a kind of cleaner for cleaners and hairdressers and hospitality, saying fed up with hospitality, come and make a difference with us in social care. So trying to reach different groups who would be searching for different jobs but are fed up, and have never thought of social care. So you can be creative with the way you use internet job boards, but my target would be moving towards a couple of places. And if you haven't seen this slide before, it's one of my favorites. It came from work that the Department of Health and Social Care did. They spent a lot of money looking or kind of polling and evaluating and researching job seekers. And although it looks like there's a lot going on this chart, if you haven't seen it before, then there are clusters of coloured bars you'll see in the middle. The question we're trying to answer is, if you're connected in some way to adult social care, ASC, are you more or less likely to consider a role with us? And you can see there, the first 3 sets of clusters are yeses, and of course they're much lower than the no's, which are the last 2. We would know that anyway. We know that not very many people would be interested in working with us. But the yeses are sort of different flavours of interest. Yes, but I haven't done anything about it, but I could consider it, all the way through to yes, and I've already applied. And then the no's are no, but maybe, and then the one on the right, of course, is no way ever, are you joking? And the dark blue colour are people in the general population who have no connection, have never heard of adult social care, or don't know anyone, or have nothing to do with it. And the interesting bars, of course, are the sort of cyan, the blue, light blue, and the green. And the cyan bar, the light blue one, is those people who know someone already working in social care. So they're not already a care worker in West Sussex, but they are a friend or a family member of you or your care workers. And they convert, as you can see, much more likely to convert. And they're actually even beaten by people where your services are delivering care. So these are family members coming in to visit your residents. These are family members who are visiting the home of their mum while your home care worker is visiting. They have a good impression of the work that we're doing. They're impressed, they're aware of it, and they are considering the role themselves. And we know from the US, family carers, particularly those where the person they care for had died, were polled. And there was a huge percentage of them, I think something like 40% said, oh, I had never thought about it, but since you mention it, yeah, I would love a job like that. And I think this is our secret workforce. And the other secret workforce, is, of course, is employee referral, that if we could activate as many of our existing care workers in West Sussex to become recruiters for us, our problems would largely go away. So that's the kind of two main areas that I'm, groups of people or networks that I'm particularly interested in if I was a provider adding to, whatever I'm trying to do normally. And I mentioned family carers, and I think, you say, well, how on earth am I going to find these people? Well, you can find them in several ways. What they did in America, because they're really into this, is that they partner with a local hospice. So I'm thinking, I regularly visit Chichester, and I know there's St Wilfrid's Hospice there. If I was a care provider in Chichester, I would be straight over to the hospice to say, how can we support each other in training? How can we partner? And I'd love to have some connection with your friends and family group, which will be a big group of supporters with a common theme of they've all cared for a loved one who's died. And we know that they feel almost worthless. What am I for? I'll never get a job. I've been caring all this time. I'm bored, I'm lonely, I'm bereaved. And we can give them a family, a purpose, and they can feel good about themselves. And so I think that is something I would be considering. I would also be, carefully talking to my family groups of the people I'm supporting to explore, do they know anyone? Had they thought of this? And I would also be looking at family carer hubs and any other places and networks and partnerships that would get me in front of these people. Now, in the picture, the girl in the picture is probably slightly too young for us, but she will grow up to become a great care worker, I would expect, with that sort of experience. We know that younger people who've cared for a grandparent or a parent or have a brother or sister with a disability are the people that do love their time. Come and join us and stay a long time. So the other opportunity, of course, is referrals, and I have come over to talk about how we were doing with Care Friends before, and so we are now at approaching 31,000 app users. And it's really growing. And what I wanted to do was share just a quote from a provider, because I'm not attempting to sell this to you at all. I think, whether you use Care Friends, which optimizes your reach into this very important network, and one of the only ones really that's untapped, or not, then we need to focus on it as one of our priorities. And this is feedback from a provider. They're quite a large provider, but it doesn't mean it doesn't work for small providers. We've had some great results, even with care homes with 40 staff. Have one with 40 staff has hired 11 people in a year. Absolutely delighted. So it works with all kind of sizes. But in this particular case, I think this is a home care provider with about 1,400 staff, so pretty big. But you can see the main point there is, apart from these people stay a lot longer and they convert better, is that they've managed to get almost 30% of all their new starters from this method. And if you think the kind of benchmark for us all, definitely in West Sussex, would be about 7% would be coming at the moment through this source. So we can go from 7 to 30, almost 30, I would expect. So let's say we've got another 20% of new starters waiting to be hired, and some of the best care workers you'll ever get. Now, that doesn't solve your problem, but it certainly makes life a lot easier. So that's kind of where we are on the care side. If you look at another group, there is actually another group that converts better than employee referrals, but it's a small one, and that's alumni, people who've left you. And you've probably lost somebody right now for the big Amazon warehouse that they built next door to you, and then they're paying £3,000 to join, and I think people are leaving, but that isn't the end of the story. I think they will come back, or certainly 30% will come back. And you will have heard me talk about this before, but please don't forget that people who have left you are one of the most likely to come back if you ask. So definitely, keep in touch, texting, postcards, that kind of thing. And in terms of the process, I think it's two main things in my workforce strategy I would be doing as far as recruitment is concerned. One is source diversification and more outreach, and trying to, pick quality people out rather than rely on a flow of anybody who's half interested, which we've done in the past. I would be also looking at my process, and our processes are pretty bad, frankly. Even with Care Friends, we discovered that 20% of the candidates that the care workers recommended, the recruiter never bothered to contact. And we make a fuss about them arriving. So this stunned me to think, hang on a minute, we've got to help ourselves as well. And so I know it's really tough. You may not be able to afford a recruiter, but it's so important to have somebody focused on this. And it may be that you can ask favors and have volunteers, or you can have at least somebody focused on this, because it's a race and you have to respond to people really, really quickly. And you have to respond in the right way, particularly text messages. And text messages are the thing to do. Calling's great, but they probably won't answer the phone unless they know who it is. So we know that text messaging, especially with emojis, to build a bit of fun into it and a bit of personality, are really one of the best ways of communicating with candidates all the way through the process, actually, or move them onto WhatsApp, then you can see if they've read it. So this is something we can get a lot better at. We don't have the advantage of Tesco's and Amazon in terms of getting people through the process in what appears to be about 4 minutes. And we do have, a kind of, regulatory hurdles to go through, which are frustrating. But certainly you can improve the leakiness of your pipelines. And I think it's another big opportunity that is really easy to do. And then if you move on to kind of orientation or what would be called onboarding, then we need to improve that. And it doesn't mean a lot of effort at all. I think it's things like making it really clear to people what's going to happen and booking them in for future training 3 or 6 months in advance. That means they will be more likely to stay because they know they've got a commitment in the future, but making it really, really clear to them so they're not feeling uncertain about what's going on. And if you are the boss, then welcoming them is really powerful. In person, if that's possible to do. I believe we'll be forgetting COVID from next week, whenever it gets announced. So that'll be fine. So I think, a welcome from the boss is a huge, huge thing. It can't be understated. And obviously peer mentoring, as you will have heard me say before, is really the way of building in a shock absorber into that sort of first period. But it's very important. You need to work harder if you've recruited somebody from an job board, because they're more likely to leave. But if you've got someone from an employee referral or from another trusted source, or they know you or they know the company, or that they've experienced a family care, it's much less likely that they'll go, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't make the effort. And then if you kind of move to recognition, this is something else that doesn't really cost us any money. And what we're working towards here is becoming an employer of choice, because that's the only differentiator left. And we have to assume that unless we get a dump of money in long-term funding settlements that mean we can pay care workers £15 an hour or more, then we have to kind of work twice as hard to become employers of choice if we're not already. And many of you on the call are, and that's why you've got really good staff retention despite all of this craziness. But there's always more we can do. And I think a few things are public praise. Some people don't like to be praised publicly, but making it clear to all the staff that you recognize any one of them is a very important message, even if you don't get any reaction to it. And writing a letter of thanks home once a year at a random time signed by you is a really, really good thing too, because that will be seen by the family, and the family, as we know, are stakeholders that are often questioning why their partner is doing this job versus taking the £3 grand welcome bonus from Amazon and working with cardboard boxes all their life. So that's something we need to be aware of. And also, displaying and sharing thank you letters and letters of gratitude with the permission of the person that's written it. But what we saw in the States, which I think we should do more of here, but we're a bit shy here, is I would be sending that to the local mayor. I would be sending it to the council. I would be, I would be making people aware of the work of care workers, of these individual stories. And that helps your brand, and it generally helps the image of social care. And we're trying to work against the media a bit now. They're not being very helpful in the the kind of mood music that we get. So we've got a tough one. And I mean, a little favorite of mine, recognition of both service and performance, one or the other. Or both, if you can. And I forget who it was, but I met up with a registered manager who, unusually, I think she'd just come from Hilton Hotels. And we are rather unusual because we generally grow our own registered managers. And so it was very interesting to talk to her about the transition. And one thing she said that they had at Hilton was that you got a badge with a number on it, which was the number of years you've been with the company. And she said how proud she was of that and how it made it really hard for her to think about leaving because of this physical message she wore every day about how much commitment she'd put to the company. And so I put this medal on here. I think it's really quite a nice thing, obviously a bit American, but why not? Something that recognizes the commitment of people, and also maybe is something else that recognizes performance. These might seem trivial, but they are very, very precious to people, as are a letter from the boss. I still have mine from the 90s, where a boss, probably the last time I did something good, where a boss wrote to me personally and said how impressed they were with me. And I've kept it all these years. And you probably have the same, probably bigger stack than I have. But so I think, these things should not be forgotten, and they are within our gift to do with limited effort and time. And then if we look longer term, I mean, probably rather worryingly, you'll be losing some of your long-term stalwart staff now. And that's what, worries me a bit, is that we've got people that we would have never thought would have gone are going. And so we need to look at our long-term retention plan as well. And I think, career is often overstated. It doesn't appeal to everybody. But when I say career ladder, what I mean here is not just looking to promote people, because often we're in very horizontally flat organizations and we're very small. It's not very practical, but you can be creative about it. And I think what we should do is look at kind of a structure for care staff that recognizes their experience and skills and their commitment in that role, not that you have to be promoted all the time. So younger people often very focused on career, and we should be focused on that, and if there's a pathway towards nursing and so on. But a lot of care workers, and I think we need to demographically look at the 55-year-olds and above now much more, they won't necessarily be thinking that way. They'll want to be staying on the front line. And what can we do to give them a sense of development? Certainly, since if they've been there 2 or 3 years and you just start a new person and they both be on the same pay rate, that's a problem. But if you look, I used to work for a company called Cisco, some of you may have heard of, very large American company. I was employee number 74,000 and something, didn't feel very special, but that's full of engineers, software engineers, very interesting group of people, quite like care workers in many ways, very values driven. And they had a scheme for them, which meant that you didn't have to be a line manager, but you became ultimately what would be called a distinguished engineer. And this was a very coveted role. And so either in your own organization or maybe wider in West Sussex, why can't we have something that recognizes these specific levels? And so people feel they have a career pathway that means they stay in your organization, but they learn more skills and they can share those skills with more people. But probably a wider discussion for another day. Otherwise, what we need to be doing is asking for opinions from our staff. The more they feel they have a voice. It's also really, really good if you have a problem to get everyone together to solve it, to get different voices in there. I'm sure you won't be short of problems that need solving, but asking all the staff for their views is a really clever way of making people feel and genuinely be included in the conversation. And often they know far more about the clients and the residents than you do, because they are with them all the time, and they may be thinking of workarounds. We just haven't given them a voice. And of course, soft skills training. Those of you that heard me speak before know I'm a fan of soft skills training. We're really disastrously bad at this in social care. It's not too hard to do, particularly if you're promoting someone from a care assistant role to a supervisor role, and then we just don't give them any of the tools to do the job. So I think we need to look at, conflict resolution tips, blame-free language, active listening, these kinds of things that help people feel that they have the tools to do the job. And that can both improve retention and make them feel like they're developing as a person. And then I guess finally, if you haven't already signed up, if you have someone who's responsible in your organization for recruitment, do join this free course that I set up. Has about 120 lessons, a video course on recruitment. If you want to dive into some tips, and it records your progress. There's a certificate at the end of it. I know I've mentioned this before, so there may be you may have all signed up to it, but it's just one kind of resource that could support you, and that's at findandkeepthebest.com. And I've totally not paid attention to the time, so I'm probably wildly over, and I've probably got a lot of text messages saying stop that were dating back 10 minutes. So apologies if that's the case, but if we have time, I'll open to questions.
That's really brilliant. Thank you, Neil. We're doing okay for time. So if anybody does want to dive in with a quick question, then that's fine. I was just going to make a comment. First of all, kind of link to the end of the meeting where we're going to talk about the accolades, but the West Sussex Care accolades are coming up again. Hayley's going to mention them in a short while, but certainly that's one, I think, excellent way of recognising your team or individual members or whatever. More details to follow, but yeah, that's certainly something that can help retention for sure. I was also going to go back to recruitment, Neil, and just we've got the CABS team with us today from the County Council, and as a board, we're also meeting with some of the West Sussex MPs next week. Do you have any sort of suggestions for either the CABS team who are here today or things that we can suggest to the MPs that would make a difference? The MPs actually want to know what solutions we're proposing to the recruitment crisis. They're not necessarily going to act on them, but they'd like to hear what we suggest. Do you have any sort of thoughts along those lines?
So you're thinking of kind of county-wide interventions, are you? Is that what you mean?
Well, that's one, yeah, but also, actually having an opportunity to speak to the MPs that they could potentially, Boris has got a lot on his plate at the moment, but they could go to Boris the next day and say, do you know what, give those care providers a 50% increase in funding. They might not do that, but I don't know. I'm making light of a serious question.
Well, I mean, it's a tricky one because, a lot of our problems have been many decades in the making, of course, and particularly, the perception of the public and government to the role of a care worker, which is highly genderized and completely exploited. And we need to move that, and that requires an awful lot of money, and not only money, that requires some sustained marketing in a cohesive way. So I don't think the recruitment campaigns are doing that job, and I think that's a bigger problem with the sector that will take a long time to fix. It obviously, one of the things that we would make the most difference would be a significant increase in funding, such that we could pay care workers what I agree Unison says, £15 an hour, and that's probably a bit out of date now. But realistically, are we going to get that? And there is a practical question about how do you get that money to care workers when you haven't registered them as a profession, and it all becomes rather complicated and messy to physically deliver that money, even if it arrived. So that would be, and I know we call for that, but I think we need to make the point that that is not a panacea at all. And we know it creates problems as well. I mean, it's very important that they get the money, but we know, take, for example, if we go to the other end of the country, I was speaking to one of my colleagues who used to work for the company I worked for in home care, and he's regional director for Scotland, and he received the £500 one-off payment from the Scottish government. And he paid it. He pays his staff weekly. He paid it on the Friday, £500 or pro rata, to all his staff, and on Monday morning he had 10% phone in sick. So the question here is, we don't understand enough about, we're using blunt instruments to deal with a very nuanced, sophisticated problem. So I think money will help. It will massively increase recruitment, but you won't see much change in retention because you have to have a calling for care. So putting more money into the system attracts all sorts of people in. It doesn't attract the right people, but that would be a great start. Let's say they say there's no money, long-term money. We've given you this money already. Then if you're sitting with the money, then the council's question would be, what can we do to move the needle in West Sussex? I would say largely recruitment is a very, very local thing. And so recruiters often, I would say, funding or supporting in some way the provider to hire a recruiter, and also those recruiters to understand the art that is social care recruitment. And so we don't have dedicated recruiters. And if you're in a care home, I've never really met any care home that has dedicated recruiter. So it's so important to the lifeblood of the county's social care infrastructure. What Essex County Council are doing, I believe they're doing, and talking to them about it, very interesting, is that they have a big in-house team of recruiters that were recruiting for all of the council, and those are professional recruiters. And maybe the West Sussex has the same, I don't know, but they've repurposed them to act as what's called an RPO, an outsourced recruitment service for providers. And so they have all of the excellence and all of the sophistication and all of the time and all of the best practices and a flashy candidate management software. And they can do quite a lot of the heavy lifting on behalf of the provider. So that could be something to look at. And otherwise, I think it's about supporting providers to manage the pipeline, to have the capacity to manage the recruitment and to support outreach in the community. But it's very much a local thing. And that varies, Brighton, I know Brighton's a slightly different local authority, but, you go into the middle of Chichester, it's different than if you're in rural areas. So it's a long answer, but there are things that could be done.
Brilliant. Okay, well, that's helpful. You made me think of one thing as well, Neil, while you were saying that, which is that we often hear about the health profession in the press and the care industry, why isn't it the care profession? We're not making nuts and bolts. We're caring for people, and I just think that's a very tiny tweak. But it just, to me, that symbolizes the thinking of the sort of society, really.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Sorry to interrupt, Tom. What I put in my book, actually, and no one seems to like this idea, but I'll keep banging on about it, is why can we not wrap the NHS brand around social care so that all these independent providers would have a tagline of part of the wider NHS family? And I think what we need to do is get in the minds of the public as they drive past a care setting that there's an NHS little logo at the bottom, because we are so important and integral to the functioning of the NHS as we are seeing now. And they've got all of the brand halo. And I use the example, and it used to be I did this a lot. I'd go to a nightclub, actually probably in Chichester when I was younger. I'd always go with someone more attractive than me because that's the way it worked. And they all got all the attention. And I got left on the steps, nursing a Coca-Cola. And that's what it's like being the adult social care in the NHS. They're the glamorous covered in jewels thing that gets all the money. And I think, I'm trying to finish a blog called NHS Friend or Foe. I think we know the answer, don't we? So working closer together is kind of, an interesting challenge, but we certainly need their brand halo, because I think the only way that the public are going to realize what we all do is if they make a synaptic connection in a second of how this fits in.
Thank you for that nightclub analogy.
And I think we can all go again. So I'll see you at Tiger in Portsmouth.
Yeah, absolutely. So Neil, thank you very much. I didn't see any hands up on the...
My hand is up.
Oh,
Tom.
thank you, Rosemary, sorry.
I just wanted to say, Neil, hi, by the way, and thanks for coming and always supporting us. And I think the second wave of the recruitment and retention workforce grant details haven't been shared, but I'd be quite happy to see if we could put in a bid for some of it to appoint a workforce development manager or I've been talking to Karen Stevens about if there's any funding for that post, because I think if we could crack that and work as a one-stop shop for providers, that we're able to actually take so much of the donkey work out of what we're having to do. And I've already been talking to Hayley, who's doing some really good work on our website, and I know we've got our recruitment workshop coming up. But I think, to me, that would be a very, not simple, but it would certainly support the care providers in this mammoth problem that we're facing. So I think it is work in progress on that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rosemary.
Thanks, Rosemary.
And Zoe, quickly as well.
Yeah, I think a great presentation. Thank you, Neil. We're meeting with Deborah Sturdy this afternoon. She's presenting at the meeting, and one of the questions that have come in ahead of the meetings is about the NHS and actually how Deborah can link in with the chief nurse so that we can have more joint up working with the NHS and with social care in terms of training and working together as a whole team. And we're asking her to actually set up a working group for that to happen, so hopefully that will happen off the back of the meeting this afternoon, fingers crossed. But thanks, Neil.
No, thanks, Zoe. And I would say, just a comment on that, is I regularly hear anecdotal stories that nurses who are in the NHS considering to go to social care are almost vilified. You know, why are you doing that? Well, that's the end of your career. You know, so there's a real problem with the professional, you know, often with the nursing profession in the NHS, it seems, you know, that we have such a bad brand as far as they're concerned. So,
yeah,
you know, there's quite a lot for us to fix here. But I think, you know, we are in a crisis right now. And so we have to look at tactics as well as longer term solutions. And I think, you know, I mean, what a crisis does do is it galvanizes, brings everyone together. You know, there's a great lot of collaboration between the councils and the providers, and sometimes, not necessarily in West Sussex, it can be a bit of a kind of confrontational relationship. And I think that's changing now. And it's really great because we can put our heads together and come up with some practical solutions. And I do think there are enough people out there. It's just, how do we find them? What do we say to them? And how can we at the same time improve the infrastructure, both in terms of how we recruit, because we're all super busy and we haven't got all of the money that Amazon and Tesco have to fast track people straight onto the floor. You know, but we do have a fantastic job offer that, you know, I don't want to work in a warehouse with cardboard boxes, however much you pay me. So if you have the right values, they will never stay there very long, even if they leave you. And I think that's what we should focus on. And even with the NHS, we can give people a long-term relationship with people that become their friends, and you can see the impact of the work you're doing. If you go and work in the NHS, it's like a conveyor belt. Obviously, the conveyor belt is now broken because we can't pick up people at the end of it, but it's not much fun in the NHS, I would suggest, if you want to see the results of the work you do.
Yeah, I think what you said about the long-term problem is difficult at the moment as well, because, you know, in June or July this year, again, Deborah's speaking at one of our events, but she's focusing on student nurses and allied healthcare professionals within social care settings. So it's going right back to basics to get student nurses to raise a profile of social care. But at the moment, we can't get off that hamster wheel to actually make that happen. So I think we do now need to have a real focus in, you know, putting forward social care alongside the NHS.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to jump in quickly. We're slightly running over time now, but it's such an important area that everybody's focused on. Emma, you've got your hand up. You're also part of our next group of speakers, but so I'm assuming you're jumping in with something for Neil, are you?
Yes, yeah. So I just wanted to raise Proud to Care, really. Thank you, Neil, for your thoughts. And obviously, we all know that funding is a concern, but unfortunately, it's a bit above my pay grade, so I can't really comment on that. But West Sussex do have Proud to Care, and at the moment, we are recruiting ourselves. So what we can do is limited, but what we have got at the moment, a rather large campaign that is focusing on Facebook, Spotify, radio ads. We've got advertising on buses. So we've really gone to town on the advertising, and we've tried to use materials that are positive and reflect the social care industry as something, you know, as a real positive career choice. That's been quite successful. That's only been running for a couple of weeks. But just to encourage people to get in touch with Proud to Care, and if you haven't got an advert up on their website, then please do, because what we're doing is when we're getting interest and we're getting applications, we're matching people to those jobs. So please think about that. We also offer a service around helping you to write your advertising. So we have got recruitment specialists that work within that team that can support you with that. So please do sort of take advantage of that offer. As I say, we're a little short-staffed at the moment, and we are doing our own recruiting around that. But we've still got that function up and running at the moment. So please do take advantage.
And thank you for that, Emma. That's a very good point, well made, because we've certainly used Proud to Care in both senses. So obviously your broad advertising is clearly helping all of us 24/7, but we've also liaised closely with the Proud to Care team on the adverts that we are putting out, and they made some really helpful suggestions and improvements to our recruitment process. So yeah, completely agree with what you're saying. And I'm now going to introduce Emma.
Oh.
And is it I don't know who's speaking. I've got Emma, John and Lisa on my list, who are obviously part of the CABS team. So I'm not sure who's speaking, but over to you guys. And thank you, Neil.
I have to drop off. Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for your comments, Emma. Nice to see everybody.
Thanks, Neil. Bye.
Bye.
Lisa, did you want to go first? Are you on?
Yes, I don't mind. Thank you, Emma. So just for a point of clarity, I work with the CABS team, work very closely with the CABS team. Fantastic team, but I'm actually a member of the public health team in West Sussex. I work as an infection prevention and control nurse for them. And I've been invited along just to give a brief overview of what the county is looking like at the moment, COVID-wise. And then I shall pass over to Emma and John, who will be able to tell you about the fantastic work that they do within the CABS team. So current sit rep is that numbers do remain high across the county. However, the good news is that they are generally falling week by week. So hopefully that means that we've got over the peak and we're on the downward slope afterwards. Our average figures for the county are sitting below the national average and actually the southeast average, which is good news. However, note of caution when you drill down the information right down to the districts and boroughs. Crawley is a bit of an outlier. They actually sit above England and the southeast as far as their figure is concerned. The highest rates we're seeing at the moment are in the 0 to 19s, and especially in the 5 to 9s, which is the most rapidly increasing group at the moment. Close on there, we're back to the school age children again. We did have a blip where it was the sort of 19 to 39-year-olds that were pushing it forward, but they seem to have fallen back a little bit now. The good news is that we don't seem to be seeing high hospitalisation rates. So although we know that Omicron is more transmissible, and we do see quite high infection rates, obviously, across the county, we're not seeing that translated into hospital beds. And the message that we are getting from the hospitals is that the majority of people who are taking up those beds are the unvaccinated. So, you know, a little bit of good news there. The other things I can tell you is actually care home specific. So nationally, there's roughly about a third of care homes that are currently in outbreak. We are seeing a similar picture in West Sussex. Obviously, those outbreaks are of all different sizes. Some of them are sort of limited to just a couple of people. Some of them are very extensive outbreaks. But luckily, and I think possibly due to the fact that we do have a good vaccination uptake amongst our residents, we are thankfully not seeing those outbreaks translating again into hospital admissions and severe illness. So a little bit of good news there. Just a couple of things really to just hand over as I've got the forum. We did note that there has been quite a delay in some PCRs being returned. We know that it's been investigated. We know that is down to a failure in one of the labs that does deal predominantly with care home tests, and they had a piece of equipment that failed. That has now been resolved, so we should see that those delays being ironed out as we go forward. But in the interim, the advice that we have been given is that obviously you can chase PCRs that are still outstanding after 72 hours with 119. If they haven't returned to you by day 5, then to repeat the tests, because it's likely that even if they did return to you, they might be voided. The other thing is, and I think it was raised by Kent and Medway, is that they had a lot of void tests. And when they drilled into it a little bit more deeply, within the boxes, the vials themselves expired earlier than the box date expiry. So it is being investigated up at DHSC to say how that could have happened. But just as a point for the people on the call, just make sure your staff are checking all of the expiry dates, not just going by the box, so that we don't hit that again. And just finally, and then I'll hand over, is obviously the elephant in the room, which is the ever-changing guidance. We did speak to UKHSA yesterday, and they have confirmed that, because we felt that there was possibly a risk of confusion with all of the change of messages coming out from central government. They've confirmed that they are in the process of updating all of the guidance, and it will be released as soon as they've got it completed. So look out for this space, I would say. And I think that's me finished. Thank you.
Lovely, thanks, Lisa. So Emma and John, are you?
Yeah, we're ready.
Brill. Okay, straight over to you guys then. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. So some of you, if you attend the West Sussex briefings, will know John and I and the team, but we thought it'd be a good idea to come along and just talk to you about what cabs do when they're not hosting the briefing. So have we got any slides?
You want me to share them?
Or would you mind, Hayley? It's just I'm on my mobile and it's difficult. You. So if we get the first slide, thank you.
Can you see the slide?
Thank you very much. So moving on to, so who are the Care and Business Support Team? Well, we have been up and running since about the 2016, and it was really developed following Orchid View. Some of you may remember that there was a serious case review, and following Orchid View, the CABS team were put together, and we were put together to work alongside local providers to work in service improvement, really, and to help to improve the quality. And the way we do that is because we're situated within the contracts and performance team, we kind of work hand in hand with them. So if, for example, one of the contract officers was to come and visit you, and there was areas of that they felt that we could support with, they would then send us a referral, and we would come out and support you. Our offer is a free offer, and you don't have to take us up on it at all. I'll talk a bit more about who's in the team and what experience we've got in a minute. But we work with all residential and nursing homes. We work with domiciliary care agencies, extra care schemes, and we're beginning to expand that and work with people that have learning disabilities and services, lifelong services, and mental health services. So we've got we work with everybody, really. If we could have the next slide, please, Hayley. So just to introduce you to the team, there's our mugshots. Most of you probably know us, but so I'm the team manager. I've been in post, I've been with the CABS team for about 4 years now and been in post for just over a year. Our other lead professionals are John Borthwick, who most of you probably know from the briefings. And so his lead is the provider briefings and extra care services. Lois is our domiciliary care lead. Laura Pitcher is our residential care lead, along with Nikki Reid. And as I've said, we all work as part of the contracts and performance team. We have got probably over 100 years experience in social care, adult social care, and most of us have managed care services for a number of years. And Lois is our senior practitioner. She's got a wealth of experience in social care, so it's great to have her knowledge in the team too. So if I could have the next slide. So how do we support providers? So we work with registered managers to identify and agree areas of support and improvement, and that's really important because it's what we agree, and it's about the registered manager telling us what they would like support with. We provide support services county-wide, and we share innovative and creative ideas and best practice guidance. So we do that in a number of ways. Unfortunately, recently we've held big care events in the past, and we haven't been able to do that. But we certainly have got some ideas coming up for this year, and one of them being we're looking at reviving the Champions Network, again, so we can support champions within services around those creative ideas and best practice. We make sure that guidance, any updated guidance is shared with yourselves, and we make sure that information is shared via the newsletter. We support and work with providers on specialist areas of work, so care planning, and Lois has been working on a really useful care planning toolkit that is almost ready to go, that we'll be sharing with you. We've done some work around activities and community activities, and we've produced a toolkit for that. Again, it's focused on community activities, so that's taken a back seat recently, but we'd like to relaunch that. We do a lot of work around mental capacity and supporting services in interpreting that guidance and how to apply it, and the same with safeguarding. We work with people using services, so their families, carers and friends, if it's appropriate. We really do focus on services rather than individuals, but where it's appropriate, we will of course support family and carers. We work with services providing support, such as we give advice and information and guidance, and some of you may have spoken to us in relation to the recent pandemic. A lot of our work has been focused around that over the last couple of years. We suggest training and continuous professional development, and we signpost to appropriate resources. So we work very closely with Karen Perks in the Learning and Development Department. We try to keep up to date with what else is out there, any free resource that we can share with people. We keep abreast of new resources that are available and signposts to those. So
can I jump in?
Yes, you can, John. You jump
That's right.
in.
I'm just feeling left out. We're nearly at the end of the slides and I haven't said anything yet. And it's not like me not saying anything. So
I was
if I
going to
get
say,
the opportunity,
that's unusual. That's unusual, John.
Yeah, thanks, Rosemary. Yeah, just to add, just from what Emma was saying, thank you, Emma. And it's really good. We love being able to collaborate with so many different teams, and we're really fortunate at the moment to be working with WSPiC in terms of the SCARF project with some of the stuff that Juliet's doing. We're also helping out with some of the continuing professional development stuff for the managers. And as Neil alluded to earlier, and Hayley, we're working together at the moment, and we're really honoured to be able to help out with WSPiC in such an opportunity to do this recruitment and retention workshop, and given us the opportunity to think a bit differently about how we retain and recruit our staff. And that'll all build on from the stuff that Neil was talking about earlier, as well as having the opportunity to really pick up some of the stuff from that Karen Stevens has got from Skills of Care, and looking at everybody's got a golden nugget of what works for them in a service. And what we want to do as part of the CABS team is really help to share that information and share that passion for what works. And we know it works for you guys. How can we share those ideas so that other people can just have a list of things that they might not have thought of before, or might not have thought of for a while, and have the opportunity to try again. Hayley, if you can just drop onto the next slide for us, please. What we'll do is we'll just talk a bit more about what stuff we do, and then we'll focus a bit about the work we've been doing over the last 2 years, because that's been a bit apparent with the joys of COVID and the pandemic, that nasty word, or a touch of the Mileys, as I like to call it. The best thing about coronavirus was the Cockney rhyming slang for coronavirus is Miley Cyrus. Made me chuckle. We've been working with health and clinical teams. We've been helping to develop and linking that relationship build with health and clinical teams, the care home matrons, the GP surgeries, and trying to raise the awareness of what boundaries are, what triggers are, and what thresholds are in terms of a lot of the practice, where the boundaries are between what residential services can do as opposed to what nursing services can do, where medication errors and where meds management comes into play when you're supporting people in their own home, and trying to help some of that clarification. And as Emma was saying, we've got top tips and a selection of hints and tips and top tips around best practice guidance and how we can support best practice in lots of different areas as well. That's all on the provider forum at the moment, but one of the things that we're trying to develop is a knowledge hub, which is something that is like an online library where everybody can drop templates that they feel are good practice, or risk assessment documents and things like that, that would really help us to reduce the impact on the daily grind of life and help us to share the good practice of what we've got as well. And that sharing of practice and that collaboration and working together is something that we're really passionate about as part of the team. Just dropping onto our last proper slide, Hayley, if we can, thanks. Just wanted to reflect a bit about what we've been doing. So part of the CABS team response and the CABS team response to providers and cases and outbreaks of COVID within the services, we've been really trying to work together to minimise the impact and the demand and the pressures on you guys as service managers. And since we first started doing those developments back in, excuse me, since we first did those, started those developments back in March of 2020, we tried to pull together a triaging process so that whenever public health, or UK HSA as they're known, or the health protection team, or the local authority, or the CCG, or GP surgeries, or social workers, whenever anybody got notified of a case or an outbreak of coronavirus in the service, we asked them to contact us so that we could make those initial phone calls to services. And that started off as a courtesy, once or twice we'll call. It's become now process that every time there's a case or an outbreak in any service across West Sussex, you should be hearing from us as the care and business support team the moment you've relayed that information to the service, to UK HSA. The moment you've reported an outbreak or a case, we should then make contact with you that day or the next day to be able to just check in. More of a well-being check than anything else. Initially, it was all about, have you got enough PPE? Have you got enough food in the service? In the early days. Now it's a lot more about the well-being of the staff and the managers of the service, giving you the space to talk things through, to talk about whether you feel it's right for you to restrict admissions, to restrict visitors, to see what the guidance is saying, and for us to just give you that space and time to think it through and to talk out the issues in line with the guidance. And as Emma said, that guidance, and Lisa was saying, that guidance is changing ever so much, ever so frequently. And our promise to you is that as soon as we're aware of that change, as soon as that information comes up, we will find a way of condensing and making sense of that information as best we can, and sharing that information out to you as best we can as well. One of the other things we've been doing, as Emma said, through the provider briefings, we've extended now. We have an adult social care provider briefing, which is fortnightly on a Thursday morning, and that's our main source for sharing out that information that we can't get through the newsletter. We've also now got specific extra care provider briefings, and also extra care and also domiciliary care provider briefings as well, which are specific for those providers, but there will always be some information that we can share. And by signing up to that newsletter and signing up to those briefings, you'll have that information as soon as we can get it to you, in a way that hopefully saves you having to spend all night reading documents and going through paperwork and trying to find the latest version of the guidance that's around at the moment. I think that's about it for us. I'm not sure what time we were set or what time we've got, but if anyone's got any questions for either Emma or myself, Lisa's had to drop off, I think, but if anyone's got any specific questions, do give us a holler. If not, we'll hand back to you, Tom. One of the things that we are aware of, Tom, sorry, is just going back to there were earlier conversations about the grants, the finances and the funding that's available. It is something we're aware of. It's not something we're as a team in control of. What we do is we can help out, and we've been linking with Proud to Care to produce. Proud to Care put together a booklet for the recruitment grant and the workforce retention grant, and that should show you ways of spending that money when you get it, and it is on its way, and that's all we can say at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not thinking it's sat in your bank account, John.
I wish it was. Just a couple of days of the interest would be lovely. Help me out of loans.
I'm sure I speak on behalf of all providers when I say we really do appreciate all that you and the whole CABS team do. I know you're working very hard on all of our behalves, and it does make a difference. And your positivity always rings through as well. And actually, that's the kind of energy that we need. Bit of humour about Miley Cyrus goes down nicely as well.
Best thing about
yeah. All of that is good, and as John said, if anybody wants to get in contact with them, we're running a little bit over time now. So unless there's a real jump onto the next speakers, but
yeah, I think Emma wanted to.
We'll put our email address in the chat box in case anyone needs to get hold of us.
Perfect.
Okay.
Lovely, thank you, Emma. And do we have Jane from CQC with us at the moment? Jane Jewell. There you are, Jane.
Hi. Sorry, I look as though I'm sitting down in a Good morning, everyone. Just talking of guidance, I think it was the last time I was on here, I quoted that I'd counted up 65 literations of the visiting guidance, yeah, and I had that quoted back at me in a provider meeting that I was at, and it made me chuckle that there is somebody else out there that counts the number of different guidance that goes on. So yeah, it's hard to keep pace, isn't it? Hayley, are you able to put up my presentation, or do you want me to?
I can
share the screen. Hello again. Anyway, sorry, my name is Jane Jewell, and I recognise many of your names. And whenever I say that, that's really not meant to sound threatening in any way, shape, or form. It's just nice to see some familiar names. So thank you. And thanks also for inviting us along today. I've asked if you could go on to the next slide, please, Hayley. So I was asked to come along and just give you an update. And I think, to be frank, that there's so much happening out there in the world of regulation and health and social care, and I only have 20 minutes. So I've kind of just tried to focus on what I thought was the top updates really, and that was around affectionately called VCOD, obviously for healthcare workers, and our inspection priorities at the moment. So I'm not touching on visiting guidance or changes in isolation rules, but happy to answer any questions. So I'm going to try my very hardest just to talk for 15 minutes and then leave any time for any questions. There are links within the slides, so and hopefully I'm sure Hayley will send them around to you, so you'll have the links anyway. But I think what I wanted to start off with really was just, I think it's important that I state from the outset that with everything that's happening within the world of health and social care, our purpose remains very much the same. At the moment, and that is that we remain independent and that we are making sure that health and social care services provide people with safe, effective, compassionate, high quality care, and we encourage care services to improve. How we do that is the bit that has been changing throughout the pandemic. Next slide, please. So the first topic I wanted to talk about really was I don't know how many of you manage services, so supported living services or domiciliary care services, but for those in residential care and care homes, you'd be aware that from the 11th of November last year, the regulations changed in relation to vaccination as a condition of deployment, that for all care home workers and anyone working or volunteering inside the indoor premises of a CQC regulated care home, they had to be fully vaccinated or exempt. Following the implementation for care home workers, the department went out for consultation. So we had a real voice in being able to inform the department when they wanted to look at if and how this should be applied to the wider health and social care. So that consultation closed, and it was agreed that actually the department would go ahead and implement the wider VOCD for healthcare workers. But it is important that I again reiterate that these amendments to the Health and Social Care Act are driven by the Department of Health and Social Care. So CQC are the body that are responsible for monitoring them. I've linked together there the planning tool that is the current guidance really for providers out there. I'm hoping that that's not new for you, but I thought that I'd give you the link anyway. I don't know if anybody has seen that yet or had a chance to look through if you're running a supported accommodation unit or a domiciliary care service. But it's there and it's a useful starting point. And I think as with the care home guidance, the workings out bit and the working document will be coming out pretty soon. If I could have next slide, please, Hayley. So we know that for that planning document tells us that the regulations will equally apply across NHS and independent health sector. And it's going to require that all workers aged 18 and over who have a direct face-to-face contact with service users to provide evidence that they've received a vaccination or are exempt by the 1st of April. And this is going to include all frontline workers as well as non-clinical workers not directly involved in patient care, but may have direct face-to-face contact with patients. So for example, such as receptionists at services or clerks or porters or cleaners. The key word here, I think, is the face-to-face contact. Yeah, so you'd need to be able to look at the planning document and determine which of your staff will fall part of that VOCD regulations. The key timetable is that the 6th of January was start of the 12-week grace period, and the 3rd of February is the 8 weeks deadline. So that's the last date of the first vaccination, and the regulations are planned to come into force as of the 1st of April. So the same CQC's intention would be the same as it was for care homes. How we would monitor this is, our responsibility is to check that services, regulated services, have the system in place, to ensure that they can comply with the regulations, that they've got records to confirm the satisfactory evidence, that they are monitoring the vaccination status or exemption status of their staff, and that the records are complied with the Data Protection Act, and that they are providing appropriate information and support to their workers to be able to access the vaccinations. So that's the big thing for some of you, if, as I say, you are operating community-based services, as we would say. So the other big update really is around, sorry, next slide please, Hayley. I can never get used to that, saying next slide, is our priorities, what we're doing, is the blunt question. And I'm sure it's not escaped your attention that during the pandemic, we paused our routine inspections to instead focus on the risk, in order to support the sector and to try and prevent any further spread and protect our workforce. And since the pandemic, at the start of the pandemic, we've again, I'm sure it's not escaped your attention that we've developed various forms of trying to achieve our role and our purpose. And we've looked at the emergency framework, the transitional approach, and we know that coming into this winter, I don't need to tell you that services are under exceptional pressure as we headed into winter. And obviously compounded by new variants of COVID-19. And whilst our focus is still very much on supporting services to ensure that people remain safe, but we absolutely recognise the need to respond to the severe pressures that parts of the health and social care system are under. So that caused us to really look at our priorities, our inspection priorities. And what we are currently at the moment is that our priorities can be summarised, as I've said on the slide, really. And this is around that we are inspecting where there's a clear risk to safety using our focused and targeted methodology. And when we say there's a clear risk to safety, there's many different elements of that. So what we're looking at is, almost extreme risk or emerging risk. So this can be information of concern, credible information of concern, that we're able to collaborate. It also may involve the ongoing monitoring of the services. So for many of you, you may be aware of our direct monitoring process that we've introduced, whereby we're using all of the data sets that we have to come up with various bandings for services. And that data may also throw up risks that we want to explore. So we are focusing just really on those extreme and high risks at the moment through a focused and targeted approach. From January, which we're very much in now, we do have a programme to inspect providers that are currently rated as RI, to identify where we could make improvement, and where we know that improvement, has taken place, and where a possible re-rating may support the system, namely create more capacity in the system. So those healthcare professionals on the call have often heard me talk about, are there any identified services that actually, from a commissioning point of view, that are currently unrated, that may increase the commissioning pool, and so we are trying to do lots of work with the local authority as well as providers to identify whereby actually we could help the system. So we know that we've got a severe shortage of nursing beds within the patch and domiciliary care services in the patch. So CQC have been looking at those services whereby we could create and support the system. We're also looking at the designated setting system. So this was something that we were used to last year in terms of trying to support the hospital discharge system. To support people to the discharge pathway to free up more beds within hospitals. So the designated settings have become a priority. Although it's a system that's managed by the local authority, in terms of, you know, what is a designated system. CQC have very clearly made the commitment that where the local authority notifies us that actually they're putting forward as designated setting, yeah, we you know, I'm responsible for ensuring that I free up sufficient resources to go and inspect that service within 24 hours. Yeah. Again, I've put a link there to our website, which explains this far better than I can in far more detail. So again, it's probably, I'm hoping it's not a surprise to you if you follow our website, because this came out in early December. Next slide, please. The other, and as part of that inspections that we're doing, I wanted to also just to signpost you really to the quality of life tool, and it relates to obviously services for people with a learning disability and people living with autism. And again, I'm sorry, I don't know how many people in the audience manage or work in services for people with learning disabilities, but this is come out of our pilot stage, and now so for all inspections that are beyond the IPC inspection. So last winter we did IPC assurance inspections, and we will also be doing that again in terms of the again our priorities to help the system identify where there are any shortfalls in IPC. But as part of any emerging risks or inspections of learning disability services, inspectors will be using this quality of life tool. So it doesn't replace any of the CLOEs, it just enhances the CLOEs for learning disability services. And for those that do work with learning disability services, I'm hoping that you'll be very familiar with right care, right culture, right support, and those key principles of choice, control, independence and inclusion that came into fruition on the 20th of September. Again, I've put a link to our website whereby we explain again in far more detail and what the quality of life tool looks like. So again, you can be supporting yourself and your staff to understand what inspectors will be looking at and what they'll be commenting on within reports as well. So just to give you a quick overview then, the quality of life tool was developed in order to address the recommendations from Glynis Murphy's first report into Walton Hall, and our restrictive practices review outcomes, which is out of sight. Again, that you can access that through our website should you be interested. And the tool is really indicators that help inspectors to identify areas of which they've got to explore, to assess, to really get to the heart of the culture of a service. And so it gives you and inspectors positive indicators as well as red flags to look out for in services that, as I say, that support learning disabilities and people with autism. So it's a really significant piece of work that has been piloted and that we are currently undertaking. Yeah. So again, I just wanted to make sure that those services are signposted towards that, so you're feeling confident when we inspect your services. Next slide, please. And I think just rounding off our inspections really and what our priorities are at the moment, I think it's probably worth mentioning, and it's probably even more important than ever in this current climate. I wanted to signpost you again to this document, which is how to get the most out of inspections. It came out just before the pandemic hit, really. So it was done. It was a great piece of work that was done in collaboration with all of the partner agencies that you can see in that probably very tiny photograph that I put on there, and it was developed with as I say, these trade associations and stakeholders to try and look at what the common issues in inspection, what are the kind of things that go wrong and why, yeah, and most importantly to agree some expectations and opportunities. And I see it as almost like a contract, yeah, that should happen during an inspection process, yeah. So inspectors should be referring to it on an inspection other than an IPC inspection, but the same principles, I suppose, would apply to all, you know, the minute that we cross the threshold. So if I could signpost you to that documentation, and I think, you know, again, to your staff, and especially your staff that are facilitating inspections, I think it's a really worthwhile document to feel confident with. Yeah. And just one last slide really, and that is around our strategy. And I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm just getting over a chest infection. So I'm still a bit coughy. Again, a small plug from me really around our strategy. I'm hoping that you would, if you're registered with us, your providers would have received an email from us recently around getting involved with the strategy. Yeah, and we're looking at our assessment framework at the moment. So basically what we're going to be inspecting you, how we're going to be inspecting you in the future. So it's really, really important that you get involved, yeah, because you're the people that this is going to affect. Yeah, so if I could strongly encourage you, and I think the next slide gives you various links of how to get involved and have your say. Yeah, but again, you know, I'm a great believer in getting involved to have our voices heard, because at the front line, it's especially important that we hear about how we should be tailoring our assessment framework going forward. We know that we have to look at systems in future, not necessarily just individual locations. We have to look at the care provided to one person across various systems, so from hospital to residential to nursing and DCA. Okay, I'm hoping that I've spoken for 15 minutes, which leaves us enough time for any questions, I'm hoping.
Thank you, Jane. If anybody has any questions, if you want to raise a hand using the raise a hand function, or if that doesn't work for you, then just shout out.
I can't believe there's no questions in the chat either.
Jane, I was going to just sort of raise a point really. Thank you very much for your talk. First of all, it was particularly good that you addressed a specific dom care issue and specific LD issues, because we do represent providers from all the different specialties. So it's just nice to have some specific reference to those areas. So thank you for that. And in terms of inspections, again, completely understandable that the number of inspections has been low during the pandemic, and I guess it's understandable also that those that have been inspected have had outcomes that have not been representative of the sector as a whole, if you like. So, yeah. I had a look at the stats the other day, and for West Sussex, about half the inspections have resulted in good ratings, and the other half have been either requires improvement or inadequate. But obviously, for providers and for their teams, ratings matter, and we would all love to you know, anybody other than those who are outstanding would love to be re-inspected to be able to uplift their rating. When is that sort of going to start to happen again as a sort of norm, if you like? As I say, I understand you're still trying to sort of deal with coronavirus and everything else, but is it on the cards that more routine? I know the way of inspection is changing as well, but I'm not seeing that, like, there's still no outstanding ratings coming through. Oh,
there is. So there's several points in there. If hopefully I can demystify a bit. So no, there isn't any deadline for let's go back to a business as usual approach, as in a scheduling program. The scheduling program at the moment is, I say, based on those priorities till the end of January to get us through this winter crisis. And then we're probably looking at what is our priority. We're trying to make make a public commitment that 100% of services will have some sort of regulatory touch. That may not involve a ratings change, as in we know that targeted and IPC assurance visits don't result in a ratings change. Yeah, but what I would say to providers, we absolutely get the frustrations of being stuck in an RI circle, without a doubt. Yeah, but what I would be, and I have no desire to sound patronising in any way, shape or form, but it's to be ready. You know yourself, if you should know yourself, sorry, if you are against the key lines of inquiry, whether you've addressed the previous concerns, your own internal audits, etc., identifying yourself that actually that you have addressed any previous concerns. Yeah, so you're able to at any point in the spectrum be able to say, yeah, we feel confident that we have raised our game, we are no longer in breach, or whatever the reason was, and therefore you can be showing commissioners, people that want to commission care with you, that actually this is what we've done, we've addressed these previous breach that was in 2020, and we still haven't got around to. So that's one of the things that you can do, but there is no deadline for saying we're going back to a program of scheduling. But what I would say about those current stats as well, Tom, is that yeah, half may have resulted in action being taken, or RI action. Bearing in mind the stats said that over 80% of before the pandemic, 80% of services were good. And for the last 2 years, we have been inspecting to extreme risk or high risk. I'm not, for those half services that aren't good, I get some comfort from that, knowing that, and the challenges, and I'm not here to tell you what they are, because you're at the front line, the challenges, considering what you've had to deal with, that 50% are still good. That gives me a bit of a warm glow, if I'm honest. And as I say, bearing in mind that we have been largely inspecting to extreme and high risk.
Yeah, and I totally acknowledge that. Realise that I would have expected to see about half, and in some ways, as you say, actually half. The fact that half of those who were thought to be high risk or concern actually turned out to have a good rating is reassuring.
And let me address the outstanding, because I'm very passionate about this, and I can speak with confidence because I run the outstanding panel for the South East, the entire South East and London. So I know that outstanding, we have to have outstanding panels because of the amount of reports coming through. So it does happen. Yeah, you can achieve outstanding. We're just looking at different examples.
I think I didn't actually do my statistics justice. It was to say no outstandings in West Sussex.
Right. Okay. Yet.
Yeah,
but it is attainable. It is, because it must feel very, very anxious that people aren't going skydiving, and I don't mean to be flippant, aren't going skydiving, all of these wonderful activities that often led to people living independent lives and their best lives. The examples have very much changed, and what definitely I'm seeing is that theme coming through, whereby those small incremental actions that have been taken that have cost no money whatsoever have led to them being outstanding. So again, if I could urge your members to make sure that actually when it's showcasing, as a nation, we were a bit rubbish at showcasing, let alone in the care industry, around showcasing the actions that you have taken during the pandemic, to go that above and beyond practices, have just, and I am in the process of developing, almost for our internal use, for examples of the actions that have been taken by providers that are just those small steps that haven't cost any money, actually, that have led to them being outstanding. And I will share that at some point if you invite me back in the future to talk about us, because I do feel quite passionate about celebrating the successes that we have despite a crisis that we've been through.
Yeah, thank you, Jane, and do share those with us. We'll invite you back whenever we can. So that'd be great. Zoe, I see you've got your hand up.
Hi, yeah, thanks, Jane. As you know, it's something that I'm really passionate about as well, and we've been monitoring the ratings that are coming through that are published on the 1st of every month, and I think it's really reassuring to see that good and outstanding homes are actually being inspected to make sure that things are going right. And I think even in December, one of the homes that was released as getting an outstanding rating, it was actually an inspection that was due to a complaint being raised about having closed doors within that facility, and the CQC actually went out and inspected.
Yeah,
they had previously got a good rating, and now they've got an outstanding rating.
I reviewed that
so
report.
Really, so it's such a joy to read. Yeah. And I think all the comments and things that are coming in, we've recently put lots of things together for Skills for Care in terms of their good and outstanding care guide. And the amazing things that are happening out there over the last 2 years, I think we don't do enough celebrating about.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, really important. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. Any questions from anybody else?
Everybody's very quiet today.
Very quiet. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jane. It is always really, really positive seeing and hearing from you. It's always very useful as well. So thank you very much, and we will hopefully see you again very soon.
And unfortunately, I'm not able to stay for the rest of the event, but you know, thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Jane. Bye.
I mean, I've missed your cat, Jane. Where's your cat?
Do you know what? I was going to say, the minute I'm due on, I wonder if she would come in and say hello to everybody. But she does normally, doesn't she? But she's
just hidden there somewhere.
She has, but I'm sure next time. Again, yeah. I'm just wangling for an invite to come back, yeah, and talk about different guidance.
Just say, Jane and her cat next time.
Jane and her cat. Send the invites, yeah. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Remaining on a positive note, we have Matt now from Wellness.
Thanks, Tom. Nice to see you. Thanks for inviting me on today. Yeah, something a little bit different, but hopefully ties in with the theme of the meeting. My name's Matt Hambling from Wellness. I'm the business director here at Wellness. Apologies, I don't come with subtitles. I know I've got a very broad Yorkshire accent, but hopefully I can save a couple of minutes at the end for any questions. But just to set the scene for you guys, for anyone that hasn't heard of Wellness before, actually stands for Our Organisation Makes People Happy. We are a social enterprise that have been in the sector around 12 years now, and most people know us predominantly as a training business. We come into care homes or care settings and teach staff to deliver inspiring, inclusive chair-based exercises. We've got all forms of activity and wellbeing training. We also have a minibus service as well. But I'm sure you guys can appreciate being a training business and a transport company at the start of a global pandemic was probably not the best business to be in. So a lot like many companies, we have adapted very, very quickly and more or less overnight. But what I'm here to talk about today is a brand new service that created because of the pandemic. And that is On Demand, which is a technology business, and it's a digital activity and exercise platform that I was tasked to bring on around 250 care settings in 12 months, and I'm pleased to say we've got more like 1,100. So it's a platform that has absolutely taken over the sector by storm. We are in care homes, whether that be nursing, residential, we are in domiciliary care providers, we are in assisted living, we're in day centres. We've actually just broken into our first NHS ward as well. Now, I'll quickly share my screen just so I can give you a whistle-stop tour of the platform. But hopefully you can appreciate that 10-15 minutes doesn't really give it justice. But if anyone wants to see an extended version of the demo, I'm happy to do that following this call. But hopefully you can all see my screen now. The platform can be accessed by absolutely anyone in a care setting or a care service. Your service or home would receive one password, and on that one password you can access the platform on as many devices all at the same time as you want. So what we've seen is activities and well-being going on in rooms where activities and well-being were previously not going on. So the platform can be accessed on any mobile phone, any laptop, PC, smart television, Amazon Fire Stick, dodgy box you get from the bloke down the pub. It works on absolutely any device that you can get onto our website on, okay? The platform is split between 3 main categories. So we have an activity section, an exercise section, and a TV section. I'll explain what all they are in a second, but we'll just stick onto activity for now. Yeah, just to reiterate, this is a whistle-stop tour. There's a hell of a lot more to this, but all the content that you can see on here, all the activity content is created in partnership with leading associations and experts. So we work with the UK's leading music therapists, art charities, national governing bodies of sport, Arthritis Action, you name it, we work with them and put the content here. So this platform is designed to not only support activity and wellbeing staff, but this can, like I said, this can be used by anyone in the home. So I appreciate there's some homes and services that don't have dedicated activity or wellbeing staff. Equally, this would work absolutely perfectly for you as well. But we've got over 450 separate pieces of activity content on here that is growing on a weekly basis. We actually add around 5 to 10 new pieces of content every single week. I like to call this the Netflix of the activity world. And because of all the content, you'll see why. We've made it nice and easy to search around the site as well. There's search functions here. You can type flowers, for example, for Doris that loves anything to do with flowers. She's in room 20. You press enter. And here's a list of all of our activities specifically linked to flowers. So there's 17 results found there. So it's really easy to navigate around the site. We've also got a nice filter feature here at the left-hand side. You can filter the activities by the activity topics or by the wellbeing benefit. Just clicking on to one of the activities just to show you as an example of what one of these looked like. You click on there, it gives you a brief description, what you will need in terms of resources, instructions to be able to run that activity. And as you can see down here, for any of you sat on the call worrying about Wi-Fi in your home, 95% of the content on the whole platform is printable. So as long as you can get onto a main computer, press the button, press print, and you've got the exact same activity as a piece of paper. Quickly running through some of the favorite features on here. We have an activity calendar, which is designed to give the care workers inspiration for any activity ideas for every day of the year. So this is based around the national days. So I'm sure you're aware there's a national day for absolutely everything nowadays. And until I logged onto this a couple of weeks ago, I didn't actually know that there was a World Wikipedia Day. Now, I know a lot of homes and groups already do this sort of thing. And I know this is easy to find on Google. So why look at on demand? Well, not only do we tell you it's World Wikipedia Day on the 15th of January, but if you click into there, it gives you a brief description as to what World Wikipedia Day is all about. But you've actually got 6 or 7 specific activity ideas specifically for that national day. So this is fantastic if your activity coordinator goes off sick or on holiday and someone needs a really quick win idea for an activity. They can log on within the click of 2 buttons. They've got an activity that's specifically linked to that national day. Now, this is a fantastic forward planning tool as well, because as you can see, we've got the whole of January's uploaded into here. And you can even forward plan for the whole of February and the whole of March. So you can plan for weeks and months ahead. We also have some nice features here. One of them being our activity books, which were hugely popular throughout the first lockdown. The activity books are anywhere between 20 and 80 pages long and are a plethora of word searches, crosswords, puzzles, colouring in, fun facts, topics of conversation, that sort of thing. We produce these as 2 different levels depending on the end user. Well, because these have been so popular, guys, we've actually run away with this idea a little bit. We've got a whole library of these, so over 150 of these that cover all likes, hobbies, interests, special occasions, different religions. So there's something for absolutely everyone. And again, this library is growing on a weekly basis. We also have on here our very own reminiscence newspapers that we like to call the Oomph Digest. So this is a weekly resource based on historical events that have happened on this day in years gone by. And again, we produce special editions based around specific likes, hobbies and interests. So again, something for absolutely everyone. Great to print off, leave around the homes. We also have on here a whole section dedicated to quizzes and puzzles. Quizzes very popular throughout the sector. We're fully aware of that. But if you click on quizzes there at the top, we have a huge range of different quizzes that cover all levels of ability that can be printed off and used as normal question and answer quizzes. But if you actually run these through the hub, they become interactive. So I'll click on British TV quiz here just to show you an example of that. So imagine if this was playing on a large screen in a lounge area, you had a group of residents around. Not only do we ask the question and give you the answer, but on giving you the answer, we give you a nice topic of conversation and a fun fact in this instance about Coronation Street. But here is the first ever episode of Coronation Street on a link for YouTube. So you can actually continue and carry on with the quizzes by leading into episodes of Coronation Street. All right, so something a little bit different to your normal quizzes. Moving over quickly to exercise, part of the hub. We fully appreciate some of you homes and providers that have got lots of exercise going on. You might have external providers that come in that aren't coming at the minute, or equally, if you've got zero exercise going on, this part of the platform is perfect for anyone. Again, we've got a whole range of different videos. We've got over 300 exercise videos that cover anything from seated exercises to standing to progressive, to short videos to long videos. Again, we've made them all filterable. So if you've got residents into dancing, for example, we've got videos based around ballet, can-can, cha-cha, salsa. We've even got Bollywood dancing as well. We've got some nice relaxation videos here that from guided meditation to Pilates to yoga to Tai Chi, Qigong. We've even got laughter yoga. Like I mentioned before, we work with all the national and governing bodies of sport to create lots of sport-based content as well. We've worked in partnership with Arthritis Action to create exercise session planners. So if you have anyone delivering your own exercise classes in your settings, that's great. These will ensure that they're keeping their sessions fun, creative, refreshing, and ensure that they're targeting certain areas of resident bodies, which is really important, obviously. And then moving over slightly to Oomph TV, and in my opinion, the most exciting part to this, we actually have a live TV schedule. So as you scroll down slightly, you'll see that we actually run 2 live exercise classes every single week. These are always fun, really creative. We always theme these as well. So last week, I believe they were Motown themed. The week before, they were Dirty Dancing themed. And I think next week, there might be 70s and 80s themed. So they're always different, okay? If you've read on a little bit, you can see that we actually do live nighttime relaxation sessions. We actually have a live singer every other Friday as well. So we appreciate external providers not coming into homes at the minute, but we can actually bring them to you. Now, this is my second reference to Netflix, because if you ever miss any of the live stuff, we do record it and upload it into our TV archive down here. Now, like I mentioned before, we work with leading associations and experts to create this content, and this is available to anyone in the home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just to give you a bit of a flavour on some of the partners that we do work with, we've got Creation Station, who bring activity, arts and crafts and how-to follow-on videos. We've got a group called Lingo Flamingo, who specialise in language lessons for people living with dementia. We've got gardening shows, we've got art therapy sessions, we've also got cooking and baking stuff on here as well. We've got arts and culture partners, so we can bring storytelling, poetry reading. We've even got comedy night as well. We've got lots of educational historical pieces. We've a group called History Hits. We've even got guys who dress up as famous historical characters to do history talks and quizzes. We've got music partners, lots of music content on here. So acoustic guitar sessions, some of our live sessions that we've uploaded. Okay. And last but not least, why not take people on holiday from their own armchairs? We can take people on tours of Scotland's waterfalls and beaches, but if they wanted to go further afield, we've actually got drone tours of New Zealand's west coast. Now, for the home managers and providers on the call, there is something on here for you. Every single activity and exercise has what we call a Review Me Now button. So I'll just click on back onto one of the activity books to show you as an example of this. Now we appreciate, so here's the little Review Me Now button. Now we appreciate your care workers have, you know, not got a lot of time, but this literally only takes 20 or 30 seconds. Yeah, but the impacts that you get is fantastic. So your staff can document when a session took place, how many people participated, how long they participated for. They can actually document the engagement of the activity, the quality of the content, but more importantly, you can document the well-being outcomes. Were them residents intellectually engaged or stimulated during that session, physically stimulated or emotionally? They would then submit that. And then what that means is any home manager or provider can actually log into their usage report, which is
sorry to jump in, but we're getting quite short of time now. Can I get you to
yeah, just a couple of minutes, Tom. Yeah. That's all I need. Yeah, cheers. Yeah, so hopefully yeah, sorry. Yeah, you'll have access to your own impact report. So home managers and providers can select a data range. They have an overview dashboard, and they've got access to all this impact and data as well. But just very, very quickly, just leading on from Juliet's presentation at the start, just to let you know that we've also gone into partnership with a group called Instructor Live. But not only do we look after the well-being of residents, but it's actually staff and managers as well. For anyone subscribing to Month on Demand, complimentary access to Instructor Live, which is an exercise platform accredited by the NHS, which is totally complimentary and means you can do aerobics, HIIT sessions, and various exercise sessions from your own living rooms at home. Sorry, appreciate that was a whistle stop, but if anyone's got any questions, I'd be happy to answer in chat, or equally, I'll share my email details so people can follow up separately.
Brilliant, Matt. I was going to say that if you could stick your email into the chat, then we can move forward and people can contact you that way. That's great.
No problem.
I can't believe quite how much is within that. That was huge. So thank you very much, and hopefully lots of people will be getting in touch. Karen, good morning.
Hello.
Hiya. So usual scenario, if you could do 20 minutes in two.
Will do.
So thank you, Matt, and over to Karen from Skills for Care.
Thanks ever so much. Hopefully you're seeing.
Yep.
Yeah, lovely. Let me just get that proper image for you. I will. I'll just, if I may, but this is all going to come out to you. So I'll just highlight a few things I'd like to turn your attention to. So what I've put on here is a kind of one-stop shop on topics, and we've had huge amounts of information about recruitment, fabulous topics, discussion, insight. We've got recruitment ready resources. If you want to have a look at some of your processes, including how you promote, how you attract, how you people, and that's a kind of one-stop shop on that hyperlink that you'll see there. Then we did really focus on retain to gain, and again that'll take you through to all the learning we've had around what works about retaining staff. But the CABS team and WSPiC We're going to do a combination activity, which was mentioned by John, to look at actually, and Hayley, thank you for putting the link in, you know, thinking differently about recruitment retention, because it's all very well as signposting to these resources, but we thought that workshop could be a real opportunity to say actually what works for people and how could I apply it into my own service. So we really wanted to highlight that to you. You'll pick up, if you get our e-news, you'll pick up that the next area of activity we're looking at is prepare to care. And that's where we're kind of moving on to you know, how can you plan and prepare for the year ahead in terms of supporting your staff, your own well-being, your learning and development and workforce planning. So you'll see a lot of resources drip feeding through on that, and that landing page at the bottom of the slide is where we're collating all those resources. So it's all about recruitment, retention and workforce development is captured in those slides. You're very familiar probably with the Registered Manager Network membership. £35 a year gets you to increasing activity around peer support, information guidance. And Zoe, I believe, mentioned the Delivering Good and Outstanding guide. We're taking the opportunity to update that, and you heard that Zoe's provided contributions to that. And that's a hyperlink to the sort of support we provide about getting your head around the CQC standards, particularly in relation to workforce and staffing. The Adult Social Care Workforce Development data set, the Adult Social Care Workforce data set, is something that we really want to boost the use. Oh my goodness, you're doing so many data returns. But this is one we always come back to when workforce planners, Department of Health and Social Care, the integrated care system talk to us about what's the workforce look like. And I loved Neil's style, and I have contact with somebody that does talk about the NHS parking their tanks on our lawn. That's an interesting analogy, isn't it? But I have to say, through this workforce data set, we've got a lot of time and attention on adult social care, because we point out actually adult social care employs more people than the NHS. So, you know, if you could turn some time and attention into looking at getting your data on that, that'd be hugely supportive of that sort of message we're trying to get out and across. Of course, if you do complete the workforce data set, then the Workforce Development Fund is available to you, still around and about. There's the link to the people that are supporting us incredibly well in our patch, and the hyperlink underlined what can be funded. You'll find there what money you get back amongst the qualifications, but there's also a few modules on there. You'll find that some e-learning's been put on there and what have you. You can get money back on those. The Made with Care recruitment campaign trundles on. Those hyperlinks will take you through to various resources about how you can put your jobs on that platform. Interesting figures that Neil was saying about get your jobs on the free platforms. This is one of the ones available to you. It's got some good resources on boosting your social media presence and resources that you can download to really sort of enhance your recruitment activity. This is what I really wanted to focus on though. What Neil was saying about the 50 plus, and we should be doing more perhaps to target. Well, Job Centre Plus have been doing a pilot activity in East Sussex, and they're going to bring that across the patch now to actually how do we really attract the over 50s into adult social care. So we've got a lot of resources to help us with that. So watch this space on it. I met with employment advisors and coaches to really get some key messages across about working in social care. And there's going to be a bespoke social care recruitment campaign with the DWP across Sussex starting very soon. And I know Proud to Care are linked very strongly with that as well. With the care associations, we did come up with Are You Missing a Trick on recruitment? If you click on that Ideas from Others, it'll take you through to the document where we just gathered ideas from everybody to say actually what you're doing about recruitment. One of the things we'll perhaps look at in that February session that Hayley and John highlighted is actually, are we missing a trick on retention? So we could do a vault of information about what are you doing about retention, and here's some handy hints from all of us about what works to keep staff as well. We're working with the integrated care system. We're doing a lot with them to say, actually, what can we do effectively across health and social care with that economy of scale and the funding that brings when you tap into, and I love the analogy of using the brand, so to speak, of the NHS, but there's some genuine collaborative work that we can do across health and social care that we're looking at as well. So there's mention of that recruitment and retention, thinking differently about recruitment and retention. The data has been confirmed. Just remind you again that Ruth Keenson really doing some really interesting work to map out the CPD needs for, you know, what happens after diploma level 5. And I just wanted to highlight that there is a new project starting from the integrated care system about clinical skills development. Karen Hartley has come into place now, and she is going to be doing some activity to look at what clinical skills and competency development would help in the non-registered workforce, including adult social care. So we're inviting Karen along to one of our Sussex workforce groups that Rosemary also chairs to find out a bit more on how we can really link into that activity. And it was interesting to hear what Zoe was saying about registered nurses in social care as well. And we've actually started a Sussex registered nurses in social care network, trying to recognise actually how unsupported sometimes nurses can feel in social care. And so there's, if you're interested in that, do get in touch, because we're running some CPD opportunities as well as meeting some key people to say actually the value of registered nurses in social care can't be underestimated either. So there's some information if you want to find out a bit more about anything I've said. I've kept it quite brief. Those slides will come to you. And as always, if there's anything about recruitment, development, or leading your workforce, I'm very happy for you to email me and have a natter with me and make contact with me about anything that can support you. So I'll stop sharing there, Tom, and get back to you.
Thank you, Karen. Fabulous as always, and great time catch up too. Appreciated. You kind of almost drew the whole sort of morning together nicely there, linking up all the different speakers that we've had, which does show that there is a sort of you know, team effort and a common theme running through everything. Hayley, am I right in saying that you'll put all of the slides with their hyperlinks onto the website, so that obviously the hyperlinks are quite important, aren't they?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. So now I think we are moving on to the WSPiC updates. Hayley, shall I share my screen for that? Do you mind sharing your screen, because mine's coming up on my tall thin screen, so it'll look all the wrong shape if I share it.
I can. 1 moment.
Brilliant, thank you. And I notice you've muted yourself, Hayley, just when we're going to talk about the accolades launch. Is that, would you like to talk about it, or would you like me to talk about it?
1 moment. For some reason, my muting, it disappears as soon as I share. You're more than welcome to have a chat about the accolades if you want to. And I'll pop the link in the chat. Okay.
Can you also pop the key dates in the chat when the closing date, because I haven't got it off the top of my head. But essentially, as I mentioned earlier on in the morning, we are running the accolades again this year. We are rerunning several of the previous categories that have always been popular, and we have added, I forget what we called it now, a coronavirus category.
COVID hero.
Thank you, COVID hero category. The application forms are, I think, again available on the website, and they will have details of the criteria for each category, but it really is a valuable thing to do to nominate. You can either nominate teams or individuals for most of the categories. And I know from experience at Sussex Grange in the past that even just nominating somebody makes them feel valued and special, and it's really worthwhile doing. And obviously, if they win, then that's so much the better. So please do get nominating. The deadline is in February. There you go, 25th of February. Thank you, Hayley. So you've got a few weeks yet, but that time will pass quite quickly. I know everybody's very busy dealing with changing guidance and recruitment and all the other busy things that have to be done, but it's a valuable thing. So please go ahead and get nominating. Did anybody want to add anything about the accolades?
Just the other couple of categories that we've got. So I know you mentioned earlier, Tom, about we're representative of the whole sector, and we looked at the categories earlier this month and talked about a supported living category. So we've got a support worker category and also nurses and social care category, so that all our different domains are represented. So you can nominate in all those categories, and if you go to the website, all the criteria for each category is on there as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you for your applause, John. And market stability is the next item on the WSPiC update. Was that something that somebody was going to address specifically? I'm looking at you now, Rosemary.
I know. I don't know who put that on there, Hayley.
Might have been me. When we sent the survey out, and
yeah,
just to say a big thank you to everyone and what it fed into.
Do you want to share any of the outcome of that, Tom?
Yes, sorry, it's me being dopey, isn't it, really? Yes, so Hayley has done a couple of very valuable surveys in recent weeks. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we are meeting with with a bit of luck, all of our local MPs next week. And so we've put together a survey which 80 people responded to, showing how people are coping with different aspects of the pandemic. And I've just got 5 quick stats here to share with you. One that actually got mentioned earlier, really, which is about a third of providers have either got a current or had a recent outbreak of coronavirus, which hopefully will reduce over the coming weeks. 25% of providers have had difficulty accessing testing. 50% of providers have had lower levels of staffing than expected over the Christmas period. 19% of providers have had incidents where the client's needs have not been fully met. And I think that's quite a powerful stat, really. For dom care, that basically meant cancelled or missed calls. And care homes, it just meant not being able to provide the level of service that would normally be expected. And also 20% of providers said that they are or they may be at risk of closure in the next 12 months, which again, I think quite an alarming statistic. And I've heard somebody else say actually they think that's an underestimate as well. Really that's combined pressures of finance and staffing was by far and away the 2 major things that were impacting on businesses and their viability. So I'm sure everybody on the call is having difficulty in both those areas to a greater or lesser extent. But we're going to take that message to the MPs to try and drive it home to them. And we're still sort of, they are asking us what they want us, what we want them to do about it. And more money is the easy solution to suggest, but obviously governments being governments, they've got lots of demands on their money, so we need to be able to justify why, and hopefully this survey will go some way to helping with that sort of thing. But any other suggestions from individuals, please, I'm going to say email Hayley with any specific messages that you would like us to take to the MPs. And I think that they particularly want to hear if I say personal stories, I don't mean of individual, well, maybe I do even mean individual people, but stories from a care home or a dom care provider. You don't have to be named, but just to be able to say, we have had a dom care provider that has said X and a care home that has said Y. We actually got lots of really powerful quotes in the last survey that we did. So we will obviously be using those anonymously and putting many of those forward to the MPs. But if anybody hasn't taken part in the survey and wants to add any more specific comments, then please email Hayley.
We're also hoping that Gillian Keegan, who maybe everybody knows, is the MP for Chichester, but is also the Minister for Social Care, is going to be there. But we haven't got a guarantee on that, have we, Tom?
No, it's going to be a luck of the draw on the day, I think, as to which MPs actually are there. They're not giving us any heads up on who will be there. So yes.
Tom, shall we share your really good report that you wrote on the state of care? I mean, we are able to share that now, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think
Really?
Is it available on the website anyway, Hayley, or not?
Not at the moment, but I'm happy to post it.
Yeah, I'm going to share it in whatever way you would like to do.
And it's really a very comprehensive, interesting and well presented that we were asked to do before the ministers. And I think, Karen, you were asking if it could be shared as well, weren't you? So if we send that out, I think it's now available. Maybe you should charge, Tom, because it's such an interesting piece of work.
It's not quite that good.
Well,
but we did send it to Keith Hinckley and the leadership team of the County Council. And then actually it did get slightly updated by another care provider who wanted to add some bits about LD services. So there are two versions out there, but the first version is quite a lot shorter, so that's probably the best one to share, Hayley. And then the next item is the DSPT project. Over to you, Nada.
Hello, I'm sure you know me all by now. My name is Nada Wakeford. I'm the project manager for Better Security, Better Care programme, and that is to support care providers to complete their DSPT, which is Data Security and Protection Toolkit. What I'm going to try and do today, Hayley, would you mind sharing the slides? But what I'm going to try and do today is just put it in a wider context, and that is mainly about digitalization, data sharing and integrated care records. Don't worry, Hayley, if it's not there, it's fine. So the government published their white paper recently, talking about many things, but one of the things they talked about is they detailed the plans to accelerate the adoption of technology in adult social care. And for that, they announced an investment of £150 million over the next 3 years. So if anything proves that the government is quite serious about it, it is the 150 million. Those 150 million is basically to deliver a program of digital transformation of the social care sector. So this digital transformation plan sets out a vision of how that will be done and how social care will be digitalized, connected and transformed. And for that, they have 3 priorities. And again, for the purpose of the SPT, I will just focus on the government wanting the data sharing to be the norm rather than exception between social care, healthcare and healthcare. And this can be done by the integrated care record system. But for that to happen, what we need is good internet speed, we need access to devices, and we need access to digital care records, and also we need staff to be able to do that. And worryingly, 23% of care home staff do not have access to consistent access to internet at work. And about 45% of providers are worried about the digital skills of their staff. And that's quite worrying statistics. So what is this integrated care record, and why do we want it? And it is basically a care record system which interfaces with other healthcare record systems, allowing safe access to information. And what it means in practice is that you and your care staff will be able to access the GP records, or maybe hospital records, anybody who is involved in the care of your residents, and share that information. So you'll be able to input information and also share information in a timely manner. However, there are, this is a very ambitious program. It is anticipated that by spring of 2024, and that's only 2 years away, 80% of CQC registered care providers will have access to digital social care record that can interoperate with local share record. And this will also be used as a platform for your other digital tools you may have. So maybe you have some false prevention technology, or your call bell system, or I don't know, epilepsy monitoring, etc. So not only will you be able to access your GP systems, hospital system, etc. These systems are sort of meant to be designed so that you can incorporate your internal systems in it. But if you consider that 30% of providers still use paper records only, you say it's quite a big jump. So you may well be getting a questionnaire from me in the near future, trying to map out the digital maturity of the care providers in West Sussex. And it is really so we can say, this is what people have, this is what people need, and then we can apply for some funding and hopefully get that done for you. So because this integration is already happening, because some of you will have proxy access, so you're already integrating with the shared record. But because this integration is happening, and it's going to happen even more, we need to have things in place that will ensure that our data security and cybersecurity measures are up to scratch. Now, in the slides that I'm sure Hayley will email to you, there is a short video. It's only just under 4 minutes long. But it is very good. I really like it. It just tells you really what the SPT is and why you should do it. I'm just going to give you a short overview. It is an online self-assessment of your data security and cybersecurity arrangements you may have in your home or your place of work. You complete it once a year. You can reach 3 different standards on it: approaching standards, standards met, and standards exceeded. And by completing the DSPT, you will be able to have access to NHS Mail, shared record, and proxy access. Apart from that, you will proving that you meet the data protection and data security legislation. You will answer a couple of your CLOEs on well-led and caring. Interestingly, up to now, you have been able to sign up for NHS Mail without having completed the SPT. You will not be able to do that anymore. So if you haven't got NHS Mail, you will need to complete your DSPT first. Also, if you want to have proxy access, and I'm told by people who have proxy access, they would never be without it, you will need to complete your DSPT to standards met. Up until recently, CCGs and local authorities haven't really been asking you to prove your DSPT status, but I've been told that if you want to carry on having contracts with them, you will have to complete your DSPT to standards met. NHS Mail, I'll just give you a couple of benefits of the NHS Mail and proxy. NHS Mail is a secure email system. As I said, if you haven't got it, the only way to get it is by completing the SPT. GP surgeries have been advised, and this is coming your way, unfortunately, that the only way to communicate with the GP surgeries about any sensitive information regarding residents will be via NHS Mail. So your own email address is no longer be accepted. Proxy access, apart from you always being able to know where your prescriptions are and saving yourselves a lot of phone calls and frustrations between phoning surgeries and pharmacies, it saves a lot of time, and people who are in charge of proxy have calculated that it used to take 3 days for the system to be processed. So when you order your monthly medications, it would take 3 days for you and the surgery staff to do that, and now it takes 1 hour and 4 minutes exactly. So that's really just very quickly about proxy and the NHS mail. Just really to say that there is a lot of help available. You can complete the SPT on your own. You just have to log in, Digital Social Care. You find your ODS code, you register, you set up your profile and you answer the questions, then you publish. There is an easier way of doing it, even though this is quite easy as well. And that is just by contacting me, and I can either arrange a one-to-one support session with either me or one of my colleagues, or you can book on one of our events, and they are in the slides which Hayley will email to you. Digital Social Care is actually a fantastic website, and I can say that as somebody who used to run care homes. It's written in a very simple, easy way. You know what they're talking about, and there are a lot of sample policies, procedures, templates that they're very, very good, very well done. So any questions about the SPT, either drop it in the chat or email me. I can put my email in chat. So you've all got it, but really that is just a very, very quick overview of the SPT.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Nada. And just to reiterate that the key point out of all of that it is easy to do, and one thing that you may notice once you've done it is that they do kind of move the goalposts a little bit. Is that fair to say, Nada? So every now and again they add a little bit or something. So you need to keep an eye on it just to keep yourself.
They do change it every so often. So now they're talking about not data protection officer, but very similar information lead. It's just only coming out now. They are saying that care home providers will have to have code guardian. I haven't heard anything new about it when this is coming into effect, but they are talking about it. Some questions do change. So for example, I completed a toolkit for a provider or back maybe in June, and I logged into it the other day and it looks different. So they do change it. You only have to update your toolkit once a year unless something changes. So if you've changed your training, or you've changed your policies and procedures, or you've implemented a digital system, then you do need to update your DSPT. You can just log in at any time. It'll all be saved for you. You can just answer a question a day, and it'll be done.
And the updating is really easy to do as well.
Extremely easy.
Yeah,
the whole thing is really easy.
Yeah.
What I would advise everybody is not to bother with approaching standards, because if you answer only the mandatory questions, you get to approaching standards. But by doing that, you have to submit an action plan. And to be honest, by the time you've done the action plan, you could have answered the questions. So just go for standard med.
Yep, that's good, sensible advice. Thank you very much, Nada. Rosemary, I'm going to bump back to you again, just to keep you in the call. So we've got members support next, and recruitment and retention after that. I don't know what points.
Well, mostly I think we've covered nearly everything. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. Obviously we support the Nada and the work she's doing. We're supporting Julia and the work she's doing. We're also working with Ruth on the latest, hopefully, CPD for registered managers. And if anybody would like to help her in that, I'd be really grateful. We're going to try and see if we can get her work extended to do some more scoping, to see if we can then fund an accreditation from the University of Chichester. But we don't know how that is going to pan out yet. We're equally looking at whether there's any funding for a Pan Sussex workforce development manager or person working in tandem with Skills for Care. I think since Hayley has been our development manager, things have certainly changed fairly dramatically, because she's doing some amazing work with for the association, but also with West Sussex. We are meeting now again with Keith on Monday at the providers forum, prior to our meeting with the MPs, which 2 or 3 years ago would have been unheard of. We just weren't getting our voice heard. Now, I keep saying we were knocking on the outside, wanting to come in. Now they've opened the door and they're welcoming us. And I genuinely believe that
we've got ourselves a window visit.
Yeah, well, we had a window visit, Tom. I think we've now got a, welcome to come in, sit down and tell us what's worrying you slot, which is a great improvement. We're still negotiating care fees, maybe something we bring up with the manager, with the MPs, that actually, if we only get a 5%, we need 10%. What are you going to do about it? At least put that out there, so that they know that would be still probably not up to the real cost of care. And I think we've done banging on all the time about what the future is going to be if they don't invest in our care sector. But Hayley, I don't know now. And the two major things that I feel are our biggest worries are recruitment and retention and training. So I think Sophie is going to pick up some of the training work and see what expectations and how we can try and get back at least to where we were before COVID, because I don't think we're anywhere near where we were. Sophie, I don't know if you want to add on to that.
Sorry, I was on the wrong screen. No, not at the moment. Perhaps feedback a little bit later on when we're a bit more involved in the process, if that's okay.
Yeah, so these are our ideas and how we feel that we can best support you at these challenging times. So we have sort of leapfrogged from one project to another that has funded another that's funding another. So I think, which is not funded, influenced another. So I think we're doing as much as we can at the moment. But over to Hayley then on the latest recruitment and retention part of our support service.
We are, so where to start? So when we send out our surveys, and you must get 100 surveys a week, the ones that we send out, we're genuinely helping to inform the work that we're doing. So something that's come out time and time again is staffing and recruitment and retention. So that is where we're focusing a lot of our work on at the moment. And it's in the very early planning stages, but we want to create a service for you to help save you some time, to help you get your job adverts out there across multiple platforms in one fell swoop. So it's in its early planning stages, as I said, but look out for it over the next couple of months. So really the aim of what we want to do is support you to look at your recruitment, and part of that is the recruitment and retention workshop that we're doing with John and the CABS team to create this interactive workshop, so we can help to look at what's working well, what's maybe not, how we can share ideas to support your recruitment and retention. And then following on from that, that me and Rosemary have been discussing and working with the board on, is to create maybe a service where you can send us your job advert and we can share it across those multiple platforms for you, so on your behalf, just to try and help save time. We're looking at trying to save costs as well, so ways that we can advertise on those platforms that maybe cost a bit more money, and perhaps we can do some deals and work out a way that we can do it for you. So that is really us on recruitment and retention, but also if there is anything that we can do to support you that we're not doing already or that we haven't thought of, then just send us an email anytime, and we're more than happy to help. Does that sort of sum it up, Rosemary? Okay?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, working very closely with Proud to Care, because I was really pleased to see that they're, because my theory is, if we put these jobs out there, unless there is, we can advertise them to various different groups of people, how would they know where to look? So I'm really keen that we start advertising, as Proud to Care has said, on buses or at bus stops or with the colleges or whatever. So we can actually start drawing people in and then matching them and directing them and having a one-stop shop, if you like, for care providers, rather than having to go through Facebook or Indeed or whatever. I mean, that will be the care association's responsibility, or Proud to Care, or Made in Care, or With Care, or whatever. So we will be doing that bit of the legwork for you. I just think it will make life so much easier. If that makes sense.
That's what we all want. The last 2 points on the WSPiC updates are the projects and membership. I'm conscious of time, but I don't know whether...
I think we've talked about the projects, Tom. We've talked about all the projects that are up and running.
Yeah, okay.
Really well.
Yeah.
And membership will be renewable, but that now is, we would encourage everybody to be members. And we used to be, people came to the managers forum and they weren't members, they charged. Now it's an open invitation on Zoom. So I would like to think that anybody who uses the services of WSPiC would like to be a member to access the other benefits of becoming a member.
But just to add that all care providers in the county do get get support from WSPiC, and then by being a paid member, you get access to additional features, particularly one of the big ones being the policies and procedures. But there are other things as well. Brilliant. Thank you.
Well, 32. Well done, Tom.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. I saw a message in the chat, Rachel having sold Meadowcroft. So sorry to see you go, Rachel, but it looks like you're going to enjoy doing nothing for a while. So we'll all be very jealous of that. And best wishes from everybody, I'm sure. I'll leave it there, and you all know where to find us if we can be of any help. And thanks again to all the speakers.
Thank you. Thanks,
everybody. Thanks all. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.